But I think at the core of it, Ben, it still comes back to what problem can I solve for my customer? You're either AI curious, you're AI ready, or you're AI mature. And that's really the piece that we're helping our customers with, is identifying the use cases. Because I think, what's the stat? 1 out of every 10 proof of concepts, actually succeed and will return a return on investment. I think the larger the organization, a little slower they move. Financial companies, much different. I think you start seeing them take much more advantage. And how do they bring more products for their customers to market quicker with AI? There's a lot in the financial market you can do with AI.
And this happened this morning, and I was like walking down the street in London holding my phone, which is never the best idea on a even a good day. And so I'm there thinking, right, this meeting's about to start. I've already sent my message to say I'm walk and talk, I'm audio only, I'm traveling, that whole thing. So I'm like clicking through, like right on 11 a.m. It's time to go. Fuck, it's Google Meet. And my phone comes up. Do you want to go to the App Store to download the app? And I'm like, no.
Not enough time.
I'm like, what the hell? So off I go. So I went onto the App Store, downloaded Google Meet, which was fine, and it signs me into Google. It knows who I am and all the rest of it. And then it starts saying, can we have access to your contacts? And then so I'm clicking through all of these different things, just like skip. And then it gets to, would you mind if we track your health and personal data? I'm like, guys, just stop it.
Just let me put on the audio. I want to be
I just want to talk to someone. But anyway, yeah, there. But how are you doing, Steve? Are you okay?
Where I thought you were going to go with that is like when I'm driving on the turnpike and I'm just trying to fire off a Microsoft Teams meeting, and it fires off, but then it wants the passcode. So you got you're trying to drive, you're trying to flip back and forth to go find this passcode that you have to manually put in for whatever reason. Yeah,
it's hideous. It's hideous, isn't it? But anyway, we're just putting the world to rights. But look, it's really good to see you, Steve.
We got to get you back over here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, hey, look, that trip to Philly, that was one of my first trips to the USA. Doing what I do now. Yeah, it's one of the first. I had a touch of imposter syndrome looking out the aeroplane window, coming over to Philadelphia. It was one of the first sessions I'd run. I can't remember exactly, but that was really cool, wasn't it? You had a great team.
That was a good time. Matter of fact, Brandon Rudnick's here with me.
Really?
Yeah, he works with us. He's a couple cubes over.
Oh, right. Okay, you've got to give him my best wishes. But no, it's a great team, Steve. You were. Look, I always gauge it by what's the sales leader like in the sessions with their team, and you were just one of those guys up at the front, leading the way, taking on the tough challenges. And that's leadership, mate. And well done. It was an absolute pleasure working with you. And I also gauge a sales leader on, if I'm with them for 2 days, there to obviously enable their team, how much do I learn from the sales leader across that 2 days? And you're like right up there, you're up on that, mate. So yeah, it was great, and we did some cool stuff together. And where did we go in Philadelphia? What was the pub we went to? I thought of the name the other day. Dandelion. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, that was a good little, nice little pub.
Nice little pub.
Food there. Yeah, that was a good 2 days. I mean, that was that white space district that they put together. That was a tough task, but we made a good go at it. I mean, a lot with your help. I think, starting that, having you come in for that session really got that whole group kicked off and excited to go after this monumental task that we had to do, right? It was, these were all the accounts that we could never get in before. So your session really kicked that off, and it was a great session.
Yeah, no, it was great, mate, and it's brilliant to circle back. So yeah, Steve, look, tell everybody who you're working with now, what you do, and then we're going to get into all things realities of AI today, right? So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Steve, tell everyone a bit about yourself, mate.
Yeah, so currently I'm at ePlus Technology. We're a value-added reseller. We have a couple core areas: data center, security, collaboration. We were talking about everybody going to Microsoft Teams. That's a big piece of what we do, is come into a company and help them figure out their collaboration story. Networking, data center, collaboration, security, and just recently AI. So we have a whole AI practice where we've been helping our customers. It's been about 2 years now. So, when you and I worked together, I was at NetApp, did a short stint at Dell. And then I did almost 2 years at a company called Elastic. And that's kind of where I got my, my training in AI, if you will. Elastic is a platform where they do security, observability, but also search. And the search piece was really where you saw customers putting together this: I have this data and I want to do something with it, right? So that's where, and that's right when OpenAI was coming out and everybody was trying to figure out what to do with AI. So, it was a good 2 years in getting injected into the AI world.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting, Steve. And so you're with ePlus now. What's kind of like your focus and value-added reseller? Yeah, that's a term that's been around for some time, isn't it?
You can tell I'm old, Ben. You can tell I'm old with that term.
Look, I'm a computer center. I started my career with computer center, right? So, and it was always value-added reseller, and there was a huge amount of value that one could add, but you really had to drive that engagement with the customer, because they kind of they were like, what, you guys are just the reseller, right? And they see you as like, no, we get 90% of the way through our decision, and then we send you a spec for a quote, right? That was the dynamic, and you had to get in there and really prove your credibility to get traction in those, to get an early sales stage conversation, right?
Yeah, and I think that's where we're different, right? If you're looking for someone that comes in the end that can send you a quote, that's probably the larger 3-letter resellers of the world that are out there. Where we make a difference is when we really partner up with our customers. If a customer wants to look at a certain technology, we can help them bridge what are their options out there, what are the pros and cons, what do we see? If someone's going to deploy a new storage system, some new servers, or deploy SASE, they're going to do this once, maybe twice, in a 10-year span. We do it every week, so we can really advise our customers, what we see out there in the field, what works against their requirements, what will be successful. And then the services arms that we bring that with. We have a lot of technical resources that can help our customers with that. Deploy it, architect it, and then we have a managed service arm where if a company doesn't want to manage it, we can come in and put a managed service offering right around it.
Yeah, so it's highly consultative, and we were chatting earlier on never been more need for highly consultative partners that care, that have a level of independence in this new world. You mentioned when we were chatting on email earlier that every vendor's got their AI widget and product now, and so if you're a customer, you need your vendors. But I always thought that really good, strong channel partners who were focused on the business outcome were really good people to have around. So sounds like you guys are highly consultative over there, Steve.
It's really, we adjusted our whole AI practice around that, right? So, when we first started developing an AI strategy and an offering for our customers, every third word was NVIDIA. right? And
Yeah.
that's not the approach. And we pivoted from that to this framework where we really put customers in one of three stages. You're either AI curious, you're AI ready, or you're AI mature. And how we define those as AI curious is, customers that look, we're barraged by AI messaging every day. We know we need to use AI. We don't know what value it would bring back to the customer. We don't know how we would do it. We don't know what we would automate with AI. So we need some help figuring that out. And I would tell you that's the boatload of customers are in that AI curious. AI
Yeah.
ready are customers that have figured out a couple of use cases that would make sense, not necessarily put together an ROI to see if the investment would be worth it. All right. So they're AI ready. We kind of know what we want to do. We don't know if we want to do it in the cloud or on prem. We don't know if it would return an investment to the company if we did that. And then AI mature, the folks out in Silicon Valley or, even, New York and on the East Coast, people that have figured it out long ago and had been doing AI before it was called AI, right? So
Yeah.
they're really the mature folks. But the curious customers are interesting. And that's where the bulk of the customers that I talk to are. How do we figure this out? Like, yeah, a chatbot would be great, but maybe it's something not customer facing, right? AI doesn't always have to improve the customer experience with a company. It might be automation and how do I, reduce the mundane tasks internal to my business to return an investment, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
kind of how we're working with our customers.
Yeah. And customer services was the logical place
Yeah.
to start safely with bringing in AI tools
Yeah.
into the enterprise. Wasn't hard for a CEO to be given a demo of, hey, look at ChatGPT answering just support calls.
Yeah.
And the CEO takes a look at it and goes, what? It just sounds so human. And so, but yeah, what you're talking about and is getting it into the business process. And I always think about the workflow. And so it's like, how do we do that? And that's hard. And I think that's quite scary because it probably starts with the question of why are we doing that particular business process?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, that's not a technology conversation. That's a line of business, get in a room, but it's a process. Let's get the process house in order first before we just make way faster an unnecessary process.
Yeah, and you nailed it. And so we do these workshops called AI Readiness workshops, and the ones that are truly successful are just that. The lines of business get in a room, and we start to map out the process. And a couple spots during that laying out the process. It's like, okay, why do we do it that way? And let's not question that now. But okay, now that we know the process, where does it make sense to plug in AI to help this? I'll give you an example. We had one insurance company that it was a very manual process to look through claims that came in and find fraud. There's key signs where fraud could be in an insurance claim. And it's like, okay, instead of having 10 people that physically do that, can we put those behaviors in and have AI flag them? So now one person just has to review a couple a week as opposed to 1,000 a week, right? And that's real return on your investment for that, right?
Yeah, so a very clear productivity gain for a very narrow use case. And maybe that's where this needs to go from, because I was thinking, right, I always try and think about from the customer's point of view. The customer's like, yeah, we're AI curious right now. We want to get to AI ready, and the promised land is, what was it? AI mature, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was the promised land? That's when we've defeated all of our competitors, and we're the only ones left, and we clean up. But I think what I'm hearing from you is everyone's at curious. Most are at curious, and want to get to ready.
Yeah.
And so you've got to pick off those processes. My thoughts, thinking from the customer's point of view, it's like, yeah, but there's new AI agents and all these different widgets and tools coming along, like literally day by day.
Yeah.
The market's changing so fast. How are you guys kind of, or probably your AI team, how are they kind of like tackling the rate the market's changing versus trying to handhold a customer to get from ready to actually deploying something?
Yeah, and I think that's the point when you go from curious to ready, right? Ready is like, how do we deploy it? How do we actually make this live? We have a AI integration test lab in our Virginia facility. So once we identify that use case, right, and that's really the piece that we're helping our customers with, is identifying the use cases. Because I think, what's the stat? 1 out of every 10 proof of concepts, actually succeed and will return a return on investment, for that proof of concept. So, once we, and this is the AI team that we have on staff. This is what they live and breathe every day. So, like you said, it's probably very hard for them to keep up on the changes. And then I'd say they're almost, if they're not daily, they're hourly, right? The market is changing incredibly quick. I mean, look what Google released, what was it, last week at their conference? Now you have AI mode in Google. It's really interesting how quick it changes.
Yeah, so I think I'm not a big Google guy, but what I took away from that, and perhaps Steve, that'd be really interesting for you to fill me in on this. Google are going to integrate Gemini into search.
Yeah.
So you've got 274 whatever it is million Gmail accounts, but then you've got like 9. I looked at the numbers the other week. It's like 9 billion using search, globally. So what's going to happen? So when I go to google.com, are they just going to take that brave decision to switch it to Gemini?
It's interesting. They didn't completely switch it, but I think they took a step in the right direction, where once you're signed up for AI mode, you now have, a button underneath. I'm going to do regular search. That's just going to give me a listing of, links of where I can go do my own research. And that'll have all your advertisement in it, how they make their money. But you're also going to have the choice of clicking on AI mode. So you'll get that more ChatGPT-like researched answer. What's nice is they also give you a link of where the resources came from, where the answers came from. So you can, really drill down and go find where it found its answers and how it came to its answers. But yeah, I think it's a smart move on Google's to start taking that. Okay, we have all these cool AI tools. How do we integrate it into the daily use? Right? Yeah, how they monetize that with their advertising is, I think, yet to be seen. But yeah, it's pretty interesting what's going on over there. They also, what I noticed was, you see Google Labs coming back active, right? You're starting to see more traction. Right. So they're basically sticking all their AI widgets and agents in Google Labs, so you can go play with those as well.
So what is Google Labs? What does that look like?
Google Labs was, anything that Google was developing. It was kind of like their place to see all their sandbox projects they were working on. And it kind of disappeared for a while. We didn't really see Google Labs for a while. So when you had a Google account, you can go and click on Mail or Maps, and there was a Labs button where all their little, cool little side projects they were working on, you had access to go play around with them. Now that's kind of revitalized. And you're starting to see all the AI tools in there as well that you can play with, all the integrations.
Right. So, and then presumably that all lives in, if you want, can live in GCP.
Yeah.
As your full cloud provider, provision rather. So Steve, your view of the world then, because you're presumably got large commercial enterprise customers who, some of them all Microsoft, are they kind of all going towards ChatGPT? Some have got Gmail. Are they kind of all going off into the Google world? And obviously you've got Microsoft Azure, and then you've got AWS as
Yeah.
the other giant public cloud provider in the mix here. What are you seeing around those kind of three big players?
Yeah, what I think what I see is, customers are working on their use cases, they're playing around. If they're a Microsoft Azure, if you're an Azure customer, you have full access to OpenAI's, LLMs. So
Right.
it's really easy to keep your data, self-contained, plug in the OpenAI models and start playing around with, can we build some applications around AI? So same thing with Google and Llama, right? And AWS with their models. What I find interesting is like these different. I'm sorry, Google Gemini and AWS
Google
Llama.
Gemini. Yeah,
Yeah, the mix is up.
Llama being
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Meta product. Right?
yeah.
Got it.
So what I find interesting is, which of these models will actually win out, right? When do we stop having three different models, and when are models just, we're not worrying about which model we're on. We're just worried about the application that's been delivered from it. But I would tell you, you asked me what I see from my customers. What trend I do see more times than not is everybody's doing their testing in one of the cloud providers. I'm not going to spin up a bunch of hardware in my data center because I don't know what the end result, what's the end game for what I'm trying to do for my organization. So let me play in the cloud. Let me develop some stuff in the cloud. We actually have a couple customers that have built their applications or whatever they're doing with AI in cloud, and they're already starting to see that if I keep down this path, this doesn't make real good financial sense. So I'm starting to look at what's that look like if I bring it back on-prem. So
Right.
that's actually, we're getting to the point where we're starting to see that trend.
Yeah. So, and the issue being, is that the old issue of, well, I don't know if the volume gets really big, all of a sudden my cloud,
Yeah.
but monthly billing
Yeah.
starts going through the roof. Is
Yeah, the
that what
financials don't
is
make
that the
sense
fear?
for all the resources that I'm spinning up in the cloud. And can I do this cheaper on-prem, right? You
So
go from accessibility and ease of use to, at some point, it's got to continue to make financial sense, right?
yeah, absolutely. And I feel sorry for the CFOs in this equation actually, because they're like, well, come on, guys, where's the business case and where's the ROI
Yeah.
for this, and then you've got that dimension of, and then the CFO side, and I do need certainty around. I've got a budget for this thing as well. So once you've got use case, how are you helping your customers figure out ROI from the enabler now? Once they figure out the business outcome, the enabler now being an AI product, how does the ROI kind of science work within that?
Yeah, so we have a whole workshop. What's nice is we can take, once we come up with a couple use cases, we can then take those to our AI integration lab and start to put them together. So not
Right.
only do we work on the financial piece, but we work on the actual proof of concept. Let's spin up a proof of concept, and does this, once it's developed, does this look like what you were thinking, right? Does the idea actually match with what the outcome looks like? And then we have a workshop that will walk them through the financials. And there's a lot of decisions. Are you going to do this in the cloud? What does that look, financial model? Are you going to do it on-prem? What would all the, capital expenditures look like to get to that infrastructure? Is your data ready? Does your data need to be cleaned up? Let's factor in compliancy and security. If we enable this AI application, are we opening up doors that your security team's going to be frustrated with? So there's a lot that goes into that workshop, outside of just ROI. There's like I said, you got to look at, is your infrastructure ready? Is your data ready? Are we causing any harm by opening up this AI application? And we've seen that with the proliferation of Copilot from Microsoft. We had a lot of our customers that turned on Copilot, and then all of a sudden, data that they didn't realize was accessible to everybody got exposed when we turned on Copilot. So We actually had a
Yeah.
couple workshops about a year ago that we could go in and help you analyze what would Copilot see if you were to enable it. We found, it's
Yeah.
funny story. We actually found out about it by accident, turning it on inside ePlus, and a bunch of data was exposed by you just doing a query. What's everybody's salary, right? And that starts kicking
Yeah.
back the CEO and the CFOs and the CIOs' salaries. Everybody gets upset, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely the first thing you're going to. It's like when you gave a bunch of kids a dictionary when they're at school, they look up rude words, right?
Yeah.
It's the same. Give me an AI tool. If I work for a company, I'm saying, what does Steve get paid?
You wouldn't be impressed.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, we spoke about that a while ago, didn't we? About Microsoft Copilot. I did one of my early episodes of AI outcomes just about Copilot because you had a bunch of kind of CISOs and chief officers just pausing the rollout of Copilot for for oversharing reasons. So that's really interesting. So you can actually say, well, hey, we've modeled it in our lab.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen if you green light Copilot today.
Yeah. You have to think of all those aspects, right? And little did you know you had a data compliancy issue until you found a tool that looked at it all and ingested it all and made it available.
Yeah. But Copilot, for me, my personal experience with it is, and look, I'm a small business, right? So I'm not. It's not enterprise for me. But for me, I'm just like, why am I using it when I've got ChatGPT?
Yeah.
And for me, is ChatGPT powering Copilot? Is that what Microsoft have done? Because I'm not clear on Microsoft invested in OpenAI. Is ChatGPT powering Copilot? Is that what's going on beneath the surface?
That's a great question. I don't know if Copilot's based off of OpenAI's models. I would probably assume so. It's a great question. I don't know offhand. Yeah, it would make sense with the partnership, right?
Yeah. But it's like, if you're not, I'm not sure that it does. And so I've never really worked out that partnership, to be honest. And so as a user now I have a Copilot license, which I now pay for. Interestingly, when I took out the license on my company's O365 account, I got this message through from Microsoft support saying, "Oh, you've logged a call to get support with your Copilot." And I thought, "No, I haven't. I haven't logged. I'm fine." And so then this guy called me from Microsoft, and I said, "I didn't log a call." And he said, "Oh no, we're just doing this as standard now." And I think that's because people will buy the license and then they don't use it and then they drop off as a. That's my.
So they're calling you to make sure you get it enabled and turned on, and
get enabled. And they're like, "Do you need any help?" Well, don't get me wrong, it's helpful. They're like, "Let's do a demo for you." But the problem is, I'm sat there on ChatGPT all day, literally all day, and I'm not. Even though I've had my demo about Copilot, I'm kind of like a ChatGPT guy now.
Is that because it's the first tool you started using and you're more comfortable?
Correct.
With it?
Yeah, and I'm not a Gmail person. I'm a Outlook. I'm in the Microsoft orbit around Microsoft, whatever.
World. Yeah.
O365 world, yeah. So I'm not going to go Gemini because of that. But I thought, you know what? And I didn't feel the need for Copilot. But I thought, well, I should, given I'm actually talking about AI, I should check it out. But I'm not using it. And that's what Microsoft were trying to get me to just... they were trying to make it stick with me.
Okay.
And not for me just have it dropped I just drop it as a license.
That's a new add-on to, new icon inside your Outlook.
Yeah, and I'm finding it a little bit irritating being there. We didn't do this podcast episode to listen to my woes about Copilot. Finding it a little bit intrusive, it's kind of there on my email. I'm like, oh no, do you want me to do this? I'm like, no. But
Think about it this way: what if you were a large organization, right? And you needed that
yeah,
help, and that's kind of the areas where we step in and help. But I will say it's kind of interesting. I'm a big ChatGPT user. I think I signed up. I was one of those, what was it, 7 million that signed up in like the first week. I
me too.
was one of those. And what's interesting now, as they developed the newer versions, I could see it kind of remember some of my previous queries, and you could see it
Uh,
almost tailoring to my style. It's really interesting to see where this is all going.
yeah, it's really powerful. And yeah, there was that race to what was it, 1 million users or whatever. It took for 48 hours or something.
It's
But
crazy.
yeah, so no, so anyway, getting back to the way you're seeing the market going, then maybe Steve, and also you're a guy I respect as a sales professional. What do you see from a sales point of view? Where's this taken our industry? Is it a giant wave that we can ride and help customers with, or is it changing the sales industry?
I think it is. I think it is. I think it's a great disruptor. When we thought cloud was a disruptor, and whatever sales campaigns you were in the middle when cloud really hit, you had to change your focus, about cloud. And I think it's the same thing. There's a lot of noise, and depending on the week, as the information's changing, you got to change your sales style. But I think at the core of it, Ben, it still comes back to what problem can I solve for my customer? While they're looking at AI, there's still 1,000 other projects that the business needs and need to complete. But this AI is probably top of mind, and where can we plug in to the customer and help them navigate all that that whole AI journey? So I think it certainly changed it, because it's the focus for every vendor and every sales rep out there to discuss AI, even if it's products that aren't AI really, centric. Everybody wants to discuss their AI strategy. But I think it comes back to just understanding really what your customer, what their needs are, what drives the business, what helps them do their job faster, what helps them get to market faster, what helps them help their customers. So yeah, it's a huge topic, and everybody's spending a lot of time and a lot of money on it. But how can we actually help the company do something with AI as opposed to just sell them AI? Is
Yeah,
how
so
that's how I've been looking at it.
so it's not, you're not in the, oh, this is all hype, this is all just overhyped camp then, Steve.
Um, I would probably tell you, depending on the month. I mean,
Mm.
look at all the billions of dollars that have been spent on AI, and what do we have? We have some really cool chatbots, right? I would, and I think there's a lot of use cases where chatbots help, right? I think anyone that has a lot of customers that they have to interface with, right? Chatbot makes sense. If you strip it down to just language translation, that's a huge help, right? The fact that it could know 1,000 languages and help you interface with your customers better. You think of any service industry, a water department, electric department, any type of company that interfaces with thousands of customers, chatbot makes sense.
Yeah.
There's some really cool integrations coming. I would tell you, Ben, I wave back and forth between it's a lot of hype to I'm excited to see the next real big thing in AI coming, right? So this Sam Altman, purchase of Steve Ives. Is it Steve Ives?
Johnny
John
Ive.
Ives. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting, and apparently they have their device that they're ready to release. Is that the next big wave that pushes AI forward and gets people real excited about the market. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's going to be the physical manifestation of AI, isn't it?
Yeah.
That where we go from, oh, it's not a chat bot anymore, and it's a, I don't know what that device. I've seen the rumor mill about that device. I saw an image yesterday. I don't know whether it's correct or not, of this pendant thing with OpenAI and this little. Did you see the same thing?
I didn't see that one yet. I heard a lot of chatter between, is it a fit, like a almost like a phone device, or is it pendant, or is it some glasses, right? Everybody's
the glasses. Yeah, Google. Do you remember the Google glasses?
Oh, yeah.
And people were getting like attacked. I don't know if this was bullshit or not, but we were told people were like getting physically assaulted in San Francisco for the glasses. But this image I saw of this OpenAI device was like a small square, like 5 centimeters square thing, that has a camera and a microphone, but no screen. And it's like, right, so if you wander into the room, if Steve goes to his next customer meeting and he's got that, you're wearing this thing around your neck with this, a camera and a filming
and a microphone,
surveillance device. What's your customer going to say to you?
Yeah, you got to turn that thing off. Yeah. No, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that and when that gets released.
Yeah. But this, I guess, the serious point and the point you made was that now we go into, this thing's a physical device, and where do those personal use devices go to? And then, of course, are your customers going to be looking to all of a sudden issue a whole bunch of new end user devices out there in the field?
Yeah. And in 5 years, are we looking back and remember we didn't have that, and here's something else we have to secure? It's, it can get interesting really quick.
Yeah. I think it's going to. I think it's autonomous vehicles are coming, aren't they? Obviously, we've had Waymo. You got the various other. You see them driving around London. There's a whole bunch of autonomous vehicles now, and especially the ones using AI. You got Tesla. That's coming to Austin, I believe. Maybe next month, we'll see. So I think that's going to be the first physical AI that people like, general public goes, whoa. Yeah. And then you've got the robotics and these terrifying but strangely interesting humanoid robots coming, and that's one of the things I was going to ask you about. Is I don't know whether you've dealt with any of your customers who are now building kind of like digital twin environments, and NVIDIA Jensen was talking about digital twin of a data center. So we create the data center first digitally, then we implement it physically. Have you got any of your customers looking at digital twin type stuff, Steve?
Not digital twin. It's interesting. We have a customer that is looking to completely automate a warehouse. So basically a truck would back in and a human would take the pallet off of the truck, but from that point forward, no human touches it at that point. That's as far as my customers go. That's the furthest. We did have another healthcare customer that has an innovation center where they build ideas that come out of the hospital. And one of the ideas was around a mirror that someone with like depression can talk to. And we found a vendor that had a digital avatar presence that could sit on top of an LLM, and you could have this back and forth conversation with this mirror. That was a really cool project.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Because you think about, depression, you don't want to talk to, someone. So that avatar could be any avatar of a human that you picked, or it could be an avatar of a dog or a cat, like whatever you feel the most comfortable with that you would want to interface with. And, it was a really cool project.
Yeah, and the healthcare episode I did when I was starting up this podcast, that talked about a big study that was done where the patients were chatting on a phone, on a device, with either an actual real human doctor or AI. I think it was ChatGPT. And so the patient didn't know, and then they said to the patient, got their feedback, and overwhelmingly the patients preferred talking to the AI and they judged the AI as being more empathetic with them.
Interesting.
And I was like, but why? How do you know? And it's the length of answers, the detailed questions it was asking. Of course, the doctor's so busy, you're getting a single line answer, whereas the AI is able to look at all of your history and just set out a far more detailed answer, which I guess in that, put myself in the patient's shoes, it's going to make you feel better, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if you have someone listening and paying attention and spending the time. But you almost wonder, is there an aspect of this AI model's not judging me where a human might be, with my answers that I'm giving? Maybe it would be interesting to see the behavioral science behind why on that one. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, well, there we go. We've got the devices coming, the AI-powered devices coming.
They'll wear it right on my neck.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to be watching out, Steve. I know you're an early adopter of all things AI and any car. I know you're a bit of a car enthusiast, so as well. So
too much money on cars.
Yeah. So they're going to be driving you around soon, maybe. So look, we've covered a lot. What kind of crystal ball, Steve? What do you see kind of over the next 18 months? How are you guys viewing the market? I think from what you said your customers aren't seeing as hype. They're saying, no, let's take a serious look at this thing.
Yeah. See if we can find some value in here.
Yeah, which is great. But where does it go over kind of the next 18 months for enterprise, large commercial enterprise customers, do you think?
I think what you see in the next 18 months for enterprise customers are just, continue down that path, right? How do I use AI, not only customer facing, but internal? Maybe, it's part of a plan to optimize procedures and process internal. Maybe it's even part of job elimination, right? Can I eliminate some jobs with AI, unfortunately? Major shifts for organizations. I don't know, Ben. I might be wrong here, but I think the larger the organization, a little slower they move. Outside of a tech-born company, a little slower they move. You think about a large pharmaceutical or a large insurance company or healthcare, account. I just don't think they move that quick with 18 months with AI. I think it's a little bit of a slower adoption. Financial companies, much different. I think you start seeing them take much more advantage. And how do they bring more products for their customers to market quicker with AI? And there's a lot in the financial market you could do with AI. But I think most organizations, it's just a little slower moving for them. I could be wrong. It'll be interesting what the next 18 months bring, but I think it's the same path we're on now.
Yeah. I suspect you're probably right there, Steve. And you talk about job elimination. Yeah, that's something that I'm very keen on this podcast that we track effect on people and job roles. The one theme I would say, there's probably two themes that I'm seeing doing all of these discussions on AI. One theme is everyone has got LLM, and everybody's looking at how do they introduce LLM. So that's done. Workflow is somewhat more challenging. Now, the other theme around job roles is we're not going to get rid of job roles, but we're really, really looking do we need to hire more people? Every time we get our attrition and someone say stays an average of 3 years, are we going to fill that job again, or is the AI going to do it? That's coming up. I'm hearing that more and more. And I saw a bit of I haven't read it all yet, but I think I saw a bit of a backtrack from the Duolingo CEO on LinkedIn earlier, who he said that, I think, last week, and has now had to come out and say, oh no, no, we're not, don't worry. We're not really going to be AIing out job roles.
Do you think the job roles change? You eliminate some positions, but you're picking up more, DevOps folks. Do you think that's the shift?
Well, that's what Klarna said. Klarna said, yes, they said, we're not going to let people go, but we're not going to rehire for a certain percentage of job roles.
Yeah.
But to your point, they said we are creating a whole bunch of higher paid job roles. So for us, it's not about cutting costs. It's about refocusing the workforce.
Yeah. I mean, look, we didn't fire all the bookkeepers and accountants when Excel came out. They just got better tools, right?
Yeah. And look, I do think there's huge truth in it's becoming a bit of an adage, I think, but I'll say it anyway, that it's not AI that will take your job role in the first instance. It's another human using AI.
Yeah. That's
to make themselves better.
Yeah.
And I think that's true.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, I think there were a lot of people when OpenAI first released ChatGPT, like, this is it, this is the end, right? But I think it's just going to be a better tool that we use, a more accurate tool that we use on a daily basis.
Yeah, and look, it's already, I'm just seeing it with people I'm working with, that if they ask me a question and I'm like, why don't you don't need to ask me the question. You can just go ask ChatGPT and it's going to give you a way better answer. so I'm already, that's weird. That's like the last couple of weeks. I'm now expecting someone who I'm working with, I'm like, no, you have already asked ChatGPT about this, haven't you?
Yeah.
You didn't bring it straight to me to have me put it in ChatGPT and give you ChatGPT's answer.
Well, it's interesting on that part. Another arm of our business is staffing. So when our customers need help with hiring whatever role that may be, from a CISO down to a networking engineer, we'll go through the process of interviewing people. And what you see during interviews now is, like, if you and I if you're conducting an interview with me, you ask me a question, there's a little bit of lag because they're checking answers on ChatGPT to feed back to you. So you're seeing it used in that way as well. Yeah. Real interesting how people use the tools.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. We just need those brain implants to arrive, Steve.
Well, the device again. We're back to the Sam Altman device.
We're back. Yeah. That, because when I saw that thing, I thought, that's just a stepping stone to the neural implant.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Then we're all in the matrix.
Then we've absolutely freaking doomed, aren't we? We're actually, at that moment, I'm flying to Philadelphia and joining you in the Dandelion.
There you go. We're going to have a drink at the Dandelion for sure.
We'll just have a few pints of Guinness and remember the old times, awaiting our instructions. So, look, I'm just keeping an eye on time, Steve. It's been great talking to you. So, look, how do people find you? Just talking to you now, if you're in enterprise commercial, how do people reach out to Steve Roach and say, hey, Steve, come and have a chat with me. Let's see if you might be able to help with all of your labs and your center and ability to sandbox stuff and give me independent advice. Where do people find you, mate?
You can find me 1,000 ways. LinkedIn, steve.roach@eplus.com. Go to the ePlus website, come see me in King of Prussia. 1,000 ways that they can get a hold of me.
Yeah, cool. Okay, we'll put all the links of where to reach you, Steve,
Appreciate it.
in the show notes. And look, I'm trying to keep. I could just keep talking for hours about this stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. But you'll have to come back on, Steve, 6 months, and let's see where things are at. And
Let's check that
I
18-month prediction.
yeah, and I think there'll be a certain thing you'll be wearing around your neck that will
Yeah.
be looking a bit scary, but we shall
All
see.
my answers will have a 20-second lag.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. No, brilliant. All right, Steve. Well, look, thank you. It's brilliant seeing you again, and thank you for coming on the show. Really
Yeah,
enjoyed
Ben,
it.
always a pleasure. I really appreciate the invite and always a good chance to catch up with you, and looking forward to getting you back out to Philadelphia.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it. All right, brilliant.
Sounds great.
Steve Roach, it's been awesome, mate. Thank you so much. See you again soon. Yeah.
Take care, Ben. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.